Hey everybody, this is the video guide for lesson 1.2.4. If you read the announcement posted on Google Classroom, you will note that I did change the lesson format. So where you used to go into classwork and click on your lesson, for example, 1, 2, 3, you would have clicked on the PDF, you would have opened it in Kami, you would have filled out the Kami and turned it back in. Now what we're going to do is you're going to do the same kind of thing. You'd go to your Google Classroom, you'd click on classwork, you'd click on lesson 124 because this is where the change has been made, and you'd click on this link right here. I changed over from Kami to Desmos because I just think the Desmos is more interactive. It allows you to type and draw and do everything a little bit better as you work through the lesson. And not only that, you no longer need to turn it in through Kami. When you are done with the lesson, you are just done with the lesson because I can track it all the way through. Say you stopped halfway through, I can see where you stopped, and so I no longer need to have that assurance of you turning it in. If you work through it, I will see it. All right, so make sure that we're getting those lessons done and doing the best work we can so I can see, where are we having the most issues. Anyway, when you click on that classwork and you go to lesson 124, make sure you click the link. When you do so, it'll bring up this. Now it should say your name and not mine, and then you'll just say go, and when you say go, it should bring you into a lesson that looks like this, or different lessons depending on what lesson I'm giving you. But this is where we're going to start. All right, if you have any questions or if that Desmos isn't working for you, please email me and let me know. Anyway, we'll get going with this lesson. I'm going to try to make it as quick as possible here. And so we're talking about defining transformations, talking more specifically about how we need to do rotations and just practicing that rotation method because there isn't always a great way to rotate. It really just comes about practicing. So that's where we're going to get into right away. So consider what you know about rotation. I'll let you read that. What we're going to do is we are going to just try to rotate these shapes. I'm going to do a couple and I'm going to ask you to do a couple without the assistance of me. Okay, so I'm going to zoom in here using my two fingers, just zooming in. And I'm going to make an X and a Y axis so I have some reference of what I'm rotating about. That's going to be my first step here. And then I'm going to, just for this problem, draw like kind of how my mind is working. I'm going to try to move this line right here, and I'm going to picture that rotating that 180 degrees clockwise. So that line is going to move over to there, okay? Over to this line right here. And I can see that that line is 1, 2, 3 spaces, and that's where I start. And so I'm going to change my color so you can see it. I'll change it to purple. And I'm going to have that line now be rotated down to here, okay? Now, what else is going to happen is that whole shape is now going to be facing downward. And so not only does that rotate down, this part here is getting rotated down. And so that is one space this way. And again, you might not be able to do this right away, but if you practice and you'll get your chance to practice on this, try it and try it again. And I will review it and let you know how you're doing. And so this one here is going down across 2 spaces there. So it's going down to here. Then I got a 2-spaced one down to here and back down around. Okay, that would be that shape rotated, and it's not going to be perfect, and that's okay. If I zoom out, it looks a little bit better. But that would be that shape rotated 180 degrees clockwise. Again, I'm just trying to take key points and move them and then visualize the rest. All right, we'll move to this one here with a 90-degree clockwise rotation. Again, I'm going to use an XY axis that I'll put in green. Draw it quick. And I'm going to try to do a similar thing here. So I got to change colors. I had to pause there because there were some things I needed to think about, but I'm back. And what I wanted to bring up was that this first one was a 180-degree rotation, and for some of us we might not know what 180 degrees look like, and so 180 degrees moves, that first quadrant is 90, that second quadrant would be then the 180, and that's why we end up down here. I also wanted to note that I did skip B and I'm going to skip D because I want to see if you are able to follow these directions I'm doing on A and C and apply them to those two problems. I'm going to do that with the next problem as well. Okay, so but back to C. I'm now moving at 90 degrees, which is a 1 quadrant moving. If it's in this quadrant here and it's moving clockwise, then it's going to have to move 1 quadrant over here. Okay, and again, I'm visualizing what that might look like. That one is now straight up. If I move it 90 degrees, I know it's going to be laying face down, kind of like we were talking about in class with the idea of it would create a perpendicular line to it. So that line is going to now move over to here, and it is 3 spaces long. And then I can build the square off of that. And so that square is 1 space there, here, here, and here. And I have that shape rotated that 90 degrees clockwise down to there. This is a good chance for you to practice that on B and D. And I'm going to move on. Some more rotations on the grid. I will do, I'm going to just do E because I want you to think about what would happen with F, G, and H. But again, to help me, I like to make that grid the XY axis, I should say. So I always just put it right through. Here and here. And now I have to move it 270 degrees. So that's 90 degrees into this quadrant, 180 into this quadrant, and 270 into the last one. And so I got to kind of picture how that would look going around that point. And what that would look like is changing color so you can see it. You would be down here, starting kind of like it's touching that line there, would be touching this line here. It goes 3 across, and then I build my square. So I got to go up to here, 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 and here. And now I have that 270 degree rotation there. Think about these last ones. Try to draw them if you can. We have 360 degrees, 180 with an N, and 90 with a square. Okay? Moving on. We have this problem here. So it's going to be more practice with our rotations, kind of with a line, moving it in different ways. And so on the graph, the line segment AB is drawn. I already did this for you. And what we're going to try to do is move this line 90 degrees counterclockwise about that origin point. Okay, again, it's more visualization than anything. You can try to do the triangle method that I showed in a previous video. And if you want further explanation or another video further explaining how I'm trying to use that triangle method, because I'm just going to do it visually here, please just email me and let me know. So let's mark some points here. We have point A is going to get rotated, so that is 5 over 1 up, which means if it gets rotated 90 degrees, it's now going to be 4 over 1 up. It's now going to be 4 up, 1 over. And B is 2 over 5 up, which means now it's going to be 5 over 2 up over to here. You can connect that with a line, and we have the rotated line. So we want to compare the lengths of the angles formed, lengths and the angles formed by the line segments that connect here. And so the next part is we want to connect O to A, O to B. We want to connect O to the new A and O to the new B. And if you want to label those, you can say that this is, I'll try to write it here, that's B prime. Or sorry, that's A prime, my bad. That's A prime, that's B prime here. And so you know which ones are which. And then what I want you to do is compare those lengths and give me an answer down here. Moving on. 182C. So it's really going to ask you some questions about what happened here. So you'll have your two triangles, and it's going to kind of ask you to make some kind of like talk about the relationships that you notice are happening when you rotated this and connected those points. What do you notice? And it's kind of building off of B, so make sure you give a good deep thought to B. Translations on a grid. We should be able to think of this one. All we're trying to do in this problem is explain what translations, so translation again just means slide. How do we slide or shift this triangle so that this first triangle lands on the second triangle? Describe the transformation, giving all the information you need, meaning how far down does it have to go, or how far up does it have to go? How many spaces left does it have to go, or how many spaces right does it have to go? Do your best description here in that box by typing it out, and I will check it when you finish. A little further explanation there, sorry. I'm just thinking, think about how you would get point C to land on that point C, and if every other point follows that. Moving on to this one, we have the graph on the left. We need to find the coordinates E, F, G, and what we're doing here is pretty much we want to translate this the same way that we translated this here. And so you have to take note of what happened here, how many spaces down or up did it go, how many spaces left or right did it go, and then you want to apply that same kind of translation to this triangle here. Okay, so what you'll do, that's going to be for part A, and then for part B, you're going to connect your old vertexes to your new vertexes after it's been translated. So your original point F will connect with your new point F, and then you want to make some notes down here about what happened or what those lines look like after you've connected them. The next problem, we have how can transformations such as reflections help us? So really what we're doing is we want to reflect this line AB. We want to reflect it over that line of reflection. And then we are going to connect because we're going to end up with a new A somewhere over here. After you draw it, you'll see it. And then you're going to connect the old A to the new A, and you're going to answer this question. And you're going to kind of think to yourself, well, what's similar between that line and the line that's been reflected? It's not going to be perfect because we're working on Desmos, but think about in a perfect world, if it was reflected perfectly, what would happen and what shape was created and what is special about that shape. That answer can go down here in that box. Lastly, I'm going to have you fill out the learning log. It is just talking about isosceles triangles. That might have a callback to a problem right before this, so think about that. And just fill it out, including today's date, and it's just a nice way to reflect and something I can read through to see, hey, did we really get that concept? Lastly, just reflecting, what questions might you have about today's lesson? This I will definitely read over, and I will try to address any of those questions in class as a whole group. Okay? You may have noticed that I definitely worked differently through this one than I would used to do on a Kami. That is because I really want you to do your best working through it without a ton of assistance from me. And then when you get stuck, when you have problems, I want you to reach out to me through email or reach out to a friend of yours that is also in geometry and ask them how they're doing and what they did on that problem. All right? This is in hopes that I can still address every question you might have. This is also in hopes that you are able to do most of these problems without me showing you exactly how to do it. I do have my attendance question for the day that needs to be filled out, and it's really asking how did you like this lesson, and it's going to also be asking deeper in that same question. It's asking how did you like my new video format? Did you like the freedom to try a little bit more, or would you prefer me explaining everything? Okay, so please answer that attendance question and make sure you send me those emails about questions you might have throughout the lesson.